So this is going to be a pretty fascinating video because we're doing another Warhammer video where in here I'm going to be talking about some headcanon voices I have for certain Warhammer characters. Now there's so many, I really, and yes, I am aware that there have been animated projects and audiobooks and whatever who give voices to these characters, but these are just my personal favorites whenever I read the books. So, yeah. If you guys have any, I'm not saying, like, these are the definitive these are just headcanon voices for me. And I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say in your videos. Like, I'm always excited to hear where you guys stand on those videos. I mean, these voices, excuse me. So, I'm really excited for this, and keep in mind, these are just my personal headcanon voices whenever I read the books for the characters. And it's not every single character, I'm gonna say that right now. Yeah. I am, it's just a handful, because there's a lot of Warhammer characters, so let's get started. So starting off, the God Emperor. My headcanon voice for the God Emperor is Ralph Einson. Ralph Einson, I can't pronounce his last name, but that's close as I get. Ralph Einson. Ralph Einson, for those who don't know, he recently, a lot of you would probably know him best as the new Father Brennan in The First Omen, or you'd probably know him from The Green Knight, or as the voice of the Green Knight, and also he played the father in The Witch. He has this big, deep, resonating voice that commands a lot of power, and it really does fit the God Emperor. Like, just sitting on that throne, you can just hear the echo of his mind. That's how I very much see it. Having Ralph Einson as the voice of the God Emperor, at least to me. Next up, the one who started all of this. This was the one that made me go, yeah, I want to make this as a fun video. And that is Trazyn the Infinite. Trazyn the Infinite's probably now becoming one of my favorite characters since I started to get more and more into Warhammer. He's such a bitch. He's such a catty bitch. I love that. He's like Brainiac if he had like Prime Starscream's personality, like Transformers Prime's Starscream's personality. So the voice I imagine for Trazyn is Jeffrey Combs, who most of you would know best as the Reanimator, Herbert West, his work in Star Trek, his various roles in there, and, of course, the Question in Justice League Unlimited. The reason why I thought of Jeffrey Combs as Trazyn was because, again, Trazyn is such a catty bitch when he wants to be. And he also has that aura and veneer of superiority that Combs is really good at giving his characters. He's really good at playing a, like, I'm better than you kind of like, I'm psychologically and mentally better than you kind of character. And I really love that. So whenever I was reading, when I was reading The Infinite and the Divine, which is a great book, by the way, I like the Salamanders, and I love the Death Corps of Krieg, and I love the Salamanders. That's my favorite Ultramarine chapter. But if I'm being honest, I think the faction I'm really starting to gear towards more is the Necrons. I'm starting to gear more towards the Necrons than anything else. But yeah, so. Jeffrey Combs, that's my pick for Trazyn, that's my headcanon voice for Trazyn the Infinite. Now we go on to his rival, Orin, Orin the Divine, Orin the Divinator, Orin the Divinator. And this one, sadly, is, whenever I thought of his voice, this is an actor who's no longer with us, but when I thought of his voice, I was like, yeah, this is the guy who would be absolutely perfect for this character. Like, he would be 100% perfect. If he was still alive, he would be the perfect voice for this character. And that's Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee, of course, Count Dooku, Dracula, Saruman the White. Orin is has this regal superiority and veneer to him, much like Jeffrey, like I said with Trazyn. But what sets it different is that Orin is more like, he's a regal old man who's petty as shit. And if you've read the books, then you know that I'm right. Especially if you read The Infinite and the Divine, then you're like, yep, this is it. And what's funny is I read that book, and it's just, if you ever seen the movie Grumpy Old Men, imagine that, but with, like, godlike robot mummies. That's the best way to describe The Infinite and the Divine. So Christopher Lee, because again, for those who remember, Christopher Lee has this, of course, a very recognizable and deep and resonating, powerful voice. But he also could, when he really could, he could turn on the cattiness like up to 11 as well. Especially if you've seen movies like House of Long Shadows, or was it House of Dark, whatever, House of Long Shadows, which was a film he did with John Carradine, Peter Cushing, and Vincent Price. It took me a minute to remember that one, but yeah. So Christopher Lee is my headcanon voice for Orin the Divinator. Now we come to Robert Guilliman, and there's a lot of voices out there that people pick, but my personal pick for headcanon voice of Robert is Troy Baker, who has done the voice of Batman. He's done the voice of Superman, Joker. He's a very prominent voice actor. But the reason why I thought it, I kind of imagine, because he can do a very heroic and very powerful voice that can be strained. So I also kind of imagine it'd be like a mixture. It'd be very much like his Batman voice, where it's kind of low, it's somber. Because Guilliman goes through a lot of shit. Like, Robert Guilliman goes through a lot of shit on a daily basis. So I do kind of imagine that. Like, that's the headcanon voice for me. Next up, we have Rogel Dorn. Rogel Dorn, this one was a fun one, because when I first started reading the character of Dorn and his adventures, or that's the best way to describe his life, adventures. It's the nicest way, I should say. My headcanon voice for Rogel Dorn is Graham McTavish, who a lot of you would know best as the voice of Dracula in Castlevania. He'd also done Loki in the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon. He's done a lot. Like, he's done a lot of live action and animated in theater. He's got this deep, powerful voice to him, and when I think of him when I'm reading a book with Rogel Dorn, and how I pictured him is when he did the voice of Dante in Dante's Inferno. Just that kind of powerful, scratchy voice that commands a lot of respect. So that's why, in my head, that's why Graham McTavish shows up whenever I'm reading something with Rogel Dorn. Then we have Fulgrim, and I think this one is going to be is an interesting pick. So my headcanon voice for Fulgrim is Peter Stormare, who a lot of you would know best as the Devil in the Constantine movie. He's done a lot of other bit roles here and there, but a lot of you would know him best as the Devil, and also he voiced Dracula in the Batman vs. Dracula. Peter Stormare has this kind of low, skeezy voice, and obviously Fulgrim was corrupted, so I kind of imagine this dark voice that's like a tempting serpent. That's the best way to describe Stormare's voice, is like a serpent that's tempting you. Which, if you've seen him as he is now, yeah, fits. Anyway, next up is... Alright, this is a voice everyone picks whenever they say headcanon voice for this character, but I think we'll all agree on it. And that is Sanguinius. And my headcanon voice for Sanguinius is James Callis, who everyone would know best as the voice of Alucard from, again, Castlevania. There's gonna be there's a lot of Castlevania on here, I know, but they have such a one of the best voice talent cast on there. So, Sanguinius, again, oh boy, the vampire character gets the vampire voice actor? Aren't you fucking original? And yes, I'm aware, but when I hear Sanguinius, and when I'm reading books with him, James Callis has an angelic, very somber tone to him, and that's how you kind of imagine Sanguinius and what became of him, so it really did fit for me. Next up is Vulcan. And Vulcan, in my headcanon voice for Vulcan, is... I'm going to have trouble, because I wrote it down and I still have trouble with it. Adekunle McCormick, who, again, another voice actor from Castlevania, Isaac. A lot of people say, when they think of Vulcan, they think of, Keith David or Lance Reddick, and those are good, too, don't get me wrong. Those are good headcanon voices. But whenever I read a book with Vulcan in it, Vulcan always had this calm demeanor to him that was the weight of the world on. You could hear the weight in his voice, and he always spoke with just this kind of cold tone, but there was emotion behind it, and that's why I thought of McCormick. Hope I'm saying that I pronounced that name right. I apologize if I didn't. And finally, among these people is Horus. So, of course, the mastermind of the Horus Heresy. Actually, I have one more. So, my pick for Horus is Jason Isaacs. Obviously, his body of work is well known. He's done a lot of great voices. He's a great villain. And he actually, when he does villain voices, he does a phenomenal job of this cold and calculating, very, I am going to fucking kill you kind of tone. So Jason Isaacs is my headcanon voice for Horus. And finally is Ghazghul Thraka. Thraka is like a lot of people you have for Thraka. Of course, one of the most dangerous orcs out there. Actually, I have two more. I forgot. I have two commissars, and you might know who they are. But Thraka, the reason why, I kind of imagine, and this is going to be kind of a basic bitch answer, but hear me out. Michael Dorn, of course, Worf, but yeah, he's such a fucking good voice actor. He's got such a recognizable and powerful voice. It's so easy to see, it's so easy to imagine him as an orc, especially like Ghazghul. And I know I'm probably mispronouncing that. Please forgive me. But yeah, Ghazghul Gathraka, that's Michael Dorn is my pick for that orc. Now we come to Caiaphas Cain. It's Bruce Campbell. That's my headcanon voice for Caiaphas Cain. That fucking clown of a human being. There's no other... When I first started reading books of Caiaphas Cain, I literally was like, oh, it's Bruce Campbell. That immediately Bruce Campbell's voice came into my head when I first heard it. So Caiaphas Cain, that's Bruce Campbell. There's no other doubt. Finally, we have Yarick, another commissar. Yarick was an interesting one because I kind of imagine Yarick as a... he's very stern, he's very, focused, and for that one, Yarick in my head, he always sounded... my headcanon voice for him was Sean Pertwee, who's the son of John Pertwee, the Third Doctor. He's been in a lot of bit roles. A lot of you would know him best as Alfred from... Alfred from Gotham. But he's done a lot of bit roles. You've seen him in movies like Dog Soldiers, Event Horizon, a few other movies here and there. So, that's how I am at. That was my headcanon voice for Yarick. Was this very strong, this very powerful but very calm and collected. I'm gonna fuck you up even if you're an orc kind of tone. So Sean Pertwee was definitely my pick for Yarick. Well, now I have some other ones I want to throw out real fast. I know some people are probably wait, why didn't you have one of Henry Cavill? He's so connected now, especially with making a Warhammer show. And not to discredit Henry Cavill, great actor, and I'm glad he's bringing the world of Warhammer to television finally. There wasn't really anyone I could imagine him for headcanon voice, but maybe somewhere down the road I'll read a book and be like, oh, yeah, this guy. That's who I'm imagining for this voice. I will say for one more is Lion, and a lot of people, again, this is one a lot of people have chosen for their headcanon voice for Lion, but Charles Dance. That's too easy, right? Charles Dance is Lion, but it fits so well. So there you go, guys. But you guys tell me in the comments below, what are some headcanon voices you hear for Warhammer characters? Just comment below, let me know. I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say about these. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.